you're going to break it into 2 sections?
Yeah, I think I probably will.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and do the intro again. Welcome everybody to the Kentuckiana FileMaker Developers Group. We're here in our August meeting, and today continuing on with our FileMaker 101 CRM project presented by Alan Bird. And so I'm going to turn it over to Alan.
Okay. Just our disclaimer on how we start, that this is not a certified FileMaker training program. What it is, it's a means of implementing the training that FileMaker does and endorses and provides. And it's based upon my 30+ years of actually using FileMaker. I mean, I started full-time FileMaker in '89, so it's a few years under the belt. And what it's designed to do is build a core file. And what a core file is, it's a base file that you can use to build on. Keep in mind, when you do this, it's designed to be usable and flexible. It's not necessarily designed for a single client, but for future use. And then what you want to do, and the hard part of having a core file is keeping it up to date. As you come up with some new thing or a FileMaker makes a change, that you keep it in your core file so you can always roll it out. So that's what it's all about. So this is part 6 of it. The other ones that we've done before are available on the YouTube channel, so you can look it up. Some of the things I wanted to go over today were, we talked a little bit about portals, and then we'll also talk about portals and tabs. And then in cooperation with Jonathan, a few years ago back, we learned about how to do button bars buttons. And I've been almost every button I do now is a button bar button. And so we'll show a little bit about on why, some of the advantages of that. And then some just layout tips and tricks on list views and validating emails and those type of things. So let's get started, and let's see. So Ron, if you want to screen share this, or how do we do this here?
Yeah, sorry about that. Gotta open up the sharing capabilities. There we go. I think that does it.
Okay. I want to share that one. Let's go ahead and open up FileMaker. Okay. So can you see that screen?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we can.
Yeah. This is where we sort of started, and this is the file that is available. And I update it each time and make it so you can download it and play with it. Just so that you remember, the logon on this is 69, so it's 999999. Real complicated. One of the things I look at, and I had a question on this before about portals. What a lot of people don't realize is over here on this left-hand side, these are both portals. This one over here is, I forget the technical term for it, but it is a view amongst itself. So in this contact view, here is actually listed, whereas this is a portal that we're probably more familiar with over the long term. So on this one, as you click it here, it immediately goes to the record. I think this was introduced in, I think it was 17. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it is, it's sort of a game changer for what I do. I mean, because now you click on this navigation bar at the top, takes you right to the record that you want to do. I found this works out great for when you have a couple hundred people in your file. Now, if you get into thousands, this becomes problematic. And so then I go back to the list view. But so many of my clients are in a couple hundred users at a time. It works out real easy. It's very fast to navigate through. You just click on the last name and jumps right to it. Then you can scroll through where you want to go. So this is your basic portal. However, if you go to the detail, content, I guess I don't have it in this one. Let me open up another file. This is the reg file that I used to handle our registration for this group. And so this is now what you're familiar with, what I call my nav bar navigation, where you can run through it. Makes it real easy to jump through things. You know, it just makes it real fast and easy to navigate through. But you still have your ability to look up anything just by doing that. And this just makes it, you know, pretty easy to go through. But let's forget to there it is. So now here's a portal off to the side that you can also use, but you could also build it in a tab form. So what I want to do is I want to go to a full. That's so real quickly here, just did 3 different tabs. You can click on them. And then in here, what I found it really easy to do is on the general one, it's sort of read only. And so then you can actually have the edit one where only people who have permissions to do it can actually play with the actual data. But in this tab, you can also put a portal over here. And customer events. I think it's like that. Okay. I think. Okay. It should be. Let's change this up. Let me go to one that's already done. Okay, show me. Here's an example of a tab structure that's got multiple different things going on in it. And in the middle, you can also have a portal. And you can put all your different links together in it, and you can move around. It makes it easy to work with, and it's fairly easy to navigate. And you can put a lot of data in a small amount of space. You can also put a tab structure within a tab. So you could actually have another set of tabs going on in here if you wanted to. I need to get to something. Yeah. Now this is just a portal in here, but you could have another row. So you could have tabs within tabs, and so you can do rows on some really complex ones. When I run out of space, I'll do another row within it. So it's one way of doing that. That was sort of the easy stuff. Now I'd really like to spend some time on button bar buttons, and I've got to credit Jonathan with helping me solve this one when we were at pause on errors. Remember that, Jonathan? Sitting in the hotel room fighting this one out? Yeah. Okay. Layout, see if I got it. Setup is that? Yeah. In my theme, I actually have a whole series of these buttons that are sitting here. And the reason I use them a lot is because you can put calculations in them. If you ever wanted to show data from some other solution or the record number, that type of stuff, I mean, this is where you can actually put it, and it actually shows up in the button itself. This is the way I do for multi-languages. So it'll change actually the word in here based upon the language that's been chosen. But even my simple ones, these are all button bars, but they're just single button bars. What I mean by that is if you grab a button bar and you make something new, it'll ask you how many you want. You can make this down to a single, and that's what this is. This way you can actually put in here like a record ID.
You know, the point is that you can put in a calculation, whereas with a standard button, there's no way to put a calculation in. It's
Right.
text only. So that's why it's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I use that a lot on different things, especially in list mode. So like you've got your number here. This is the record number. It makes it very easy to do it. You have to be a little bit careful. Like on this one, you notice it's rounded on the right and flat on the left. You just have to, it's a little bit different because what it is in this setup, you've got your button bar. This is actually in the segment part. where you're actually controlling it. Now, I did find out the screen you're seeing now is running in 19, and it's almost impossible, and it's running on an M1 server. And those buttons, those little corner things don't show up. It's because it's not do it. So if I really want to do some really fine tuning, I've got to go to an Intel processor at the moment. When it goes native, we'll be much better shape. This is the latest version, but it still just doesn't have the detail on those ports yet. The other thing is in lines. A lot of people, when you, I found out in list mode, don't understand how easy it is to build this. Where if you look at my themes, I've got my header, which is this one, and all it has is a single line underneath. And the footer is a single line on top. And in the body, I've got just top and bottom. Now, what you want to do here is use your alternate rows, and there's your primary, which would be a solid white. Your alternate can be some other color, which would be highlighted. If you remember the old days, we used to have computer paper with dotted holes. You can make it greens and then give it another color so it's active. But the real key here is when you put the field in. The field you want is only on the left side, or at the end, you could do it on the right side. So you only have a bar on the left, so it gives you very easy rows. And when you click on it, it pulls through. But the thing you have to remember here is in these fields, you want to set them up with no fill. If you make them white, what happens is this field shows here, you're not going to see that effect. So you want to make them all clear. And I do that just by having my themes pre-set up. So like this is a field size 12, it's a left bar only, and I'm aligning it on the left and in the middle. So this is going to be aligned on the right. So if I click on this one, shoot, align right there. It just makes it real easy so that I've got a bar at the end. That way, even if you sort of pull it apart, it doesn't really show that there's actually a line sitting in here. But it makes, I found, really easy to make nice, clean list layouts. And this is the way I almost build all of them. And if you notice, I have the button here. So if you hover over it, it changes colors. And this is all based upon my default file that I've got set up on all my button bars, no matter what the size of them are. So let's be alternate. The other is just if you're not really familiar with it, most people aren't going to know this. If you have this checked, the only line it's going to have your lines on it are the one you're sitting in. So what you want to do is you make sure in your setup, you turn off delineated only so that you've got it for all your lines. The other thing we do, I do a lot in my business is a lot of registration. So we have to deal a lot with emails, and couple real nice tips and tricks on emails is there's two parts of it. One is a custom function. Custom function. And the custom function I use is is valid email format. And what this does is this helps identify the format of an email. So if it has to have an ampersand into it, and it has usually your TDLs, top level domains, so it sets it up. And go over here. What I do is manage database, email. Oh, okay. Hang on. There's two parts. This is the test if the email is valid. Using that custom function. So is valid email format. So if the email is something in there, it's gonna look if it's format, and then it gives you a Boolean answer. Now the email itself, I put in here, I use something else to do that. I found out that when people entered in, they'll put in spaces, or put in a 2 instead of the @ sign, or put in a comma versus a period for between the different sections. So what this is, I do a trim all. A lot of people may not really understand how trim all works. It's really sort of invaluable. Copy. See to do it here. Yeah. That doesn't look. That's the function, but it's hard to see. Let me get you a better picture. Okay. The trim all function has 3 parts to it. One is the text, which is like, what is the field? So in this time, I'd be using the word email. The trim spaces, that's here. It's either yes or no. If you want to actually trim the spaces, you put in a 1. And the type of trim is handled by this, 0 through 1. And in my cases, in email, you want to remove all spaces. So these other ones handle it just between characters, that type of stuff, or between words. And so in this case, I always use the self, because it's going to be doing it back to the email it's in, because I'm in the field email. So it's doing it to itself. 1, which means I want to eliminate all eliminate spaces, and 3 means in all places. So at the beginning, the end, as well as anywhere in between. And then what I do is I do text format remove, because what will happen is if someone copies and pastes it from a different area, like from a Word document or something like that, or a PDF, it could, if you just paste it in, it'll carry the characteristics of that format. So I use text format remove, so it removes it, so it's plain, and I can deal with it internally. So what I've got here now, go back over here. On this one, let's say if I put a comma in here, it's an invalid email. All you have to do is go over here, and in your hide functions, if it's empty, it's not going to show, or if the invalid is a 1, it will not show. So this is just a plain text field that I put in here, and it's based upon what happens there. As soon as I correct it, it goes away. Now, what the other is, by using the trim all command, if you notice I put some spaces in here. So as soon as I hit out of the field, it get rid of all those spaces. And so it makes it real easy for people to put in your email address and to verify, is it a valid email? The other thing you can do is, I wanted to talk a little bit about custom formatting. Or conditional formatting. Let's see. Now, what Rosemary TG was saying about all this new stuff coming up in registration, unfortunately, we don't have that facility today. And like this fall, we've got this big registration event coming up. And so here's custom formatting. If they're attendee, it's just color, or it's just plain. Exhibitor, it's yellow. If they're media, it's blue. And see, here's these the button on button, where this is a left, where this is a right. It takes it to two different things. But I can go in here and actually click on it, takes you right to the field that you want. If you notice, this is a live situation we're using right now for the online registration for the Army. We'll have, last year we had 41,000 people registered and we had to process them through. So moving things around in a speedy environment is extremely, extremely important. And if you're not familiar with conditional formatting, it's really pretty easy. You click on the field, you go to your format, conditional, and on this one, if it's exhibitor, it's going to make it yellow. If it's media, it's going to make it blue. The default is just clear. Now, what's sometimes a tricky is in this, it'll evaluate all the different options as it's going through. So if you have something which it is more than one possibility, you've got to look at in what order it is sitting in. On this one, it's going to be one or the other, so it doesn't make a difference. But if you're dealing in something like in the hide functions or in any case statements, it's the order can be actually sort of the opposite of this. So you have to be careful on that. That's the hardest problem I have in hide functions. It's sort of reverse logic. So I always have to, think a little bit on that.
Alan,
Yeah,
may I interject?
absolutely. Absolutely.
The nice thing about the thing you have to know about the conditional formatting is it always takes the later one, the further one down the list. If there's any conflict, it's always the further one down that wins.
Yep.
So
The one,
now that doesn't mean like if you make one bold and the other one blue, the bold will still be there and then the blue is added. But if they're things like one makes it red and the next one makes it blue, it'll be blue. So it's whatever the further one down is the one that wins, which is opposite of the way it works elsewhere in FileMaker.
I know. Okay. For example, one of the things I do, let's see, get back to here, browse. If you notice here at the end, data is complete. It's got a 1 in it. That means all the required fields are filled in. And there's an easy way of doing that. Let's see if I pull it up here again. And I use a case statement. And the reason it is because, again, it goes back to on a core file, it's very easy to make flexible. Now, in this case, a case statement, when they introduced, I think back in 14 or 15, it was the best thing since sliced bread, I thought, because it starts at the top and it goes down through, and as soon as it comes up with one that actually fits, it stops. So on here, you have to be careful of your order you're putting it in. But in this case, what I'm looking for is data complete. In other words, and again, here it's sort of a reverse logic. If the name, the first name is blank, it'll be blank, which means it would stop. But now if there's something in there, it's going to skip it. It'll go to the next one, go to the next one. If all the required fields are in, it gives me a 1. And that's what this is. So if I look at the data complete on this, I think it's complete. Manage data. It's a case statement. If all those fields are filled in, it gives me a 1. If anyone is missing, it'll be a 0 or blank. It all depends on how you set it up.
I've got something that just jumped out at me that I had never even seen. You've got if something equals and then just double quotes. In other words, with nothing in between. I've always used is empty for that.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. It goes back
Right,
to
so-
I've been at this so long that that's how you had to do it before they did is empty.
I didn't realize that like I've always used is empty because I didn't know you could just put equals quotation marks. The way you've done it, I didn't know it could be done that way.
Yeah, but it makes it really
every day.
it makes it real easy when I'm going from one client to another. He says, "Oh, I'll make, I want to have first name, last name, folder type. I just have to add another row in there.
Yeah.
It just takes care of itself." And on that case, it doesn't matter in what order I do it in, so long if any of them are missing, it stops.
Yeah, I would use not is empty, but it's 6 of one, half dozen of another.
Yeah. It was just interesting to me because I just never realized that you could accomplish the same thing the way you've done it with the equals double quotation marks versus is empty. So learn something new every day.
That's what this whole thing's all about. And I think the reason I came up with that is because over here, that's where it's at. At the very top, you've got the 1 at the top. So I just always just, click on it. So because that's been there for ages, and that's how I've always done it before they did is empty. And I just, old dog, new tricks, or old dog, no tricks, I guess. Okay. The other is reporting. Like for this example, they have to have all sorts of different reports on a regular basis. So, and I've got it set up so they can export them out, log online. But the other is, I also do a daily report. I do this report, send it to them. But the thing is so it timestamps it, at the last minute of the day, and it sends it to them. But what I do, I email it to the principals every night. Let's see. Text window. So they get this report. And this makes it real easy. It shows them the total registration, and how many that per day. It says what the day of the week it is, and it shows the information, how many new members they signed up, and that type of thing. But it helps solve a lot of people keep calling and say, where are we at today? So this way, every morning in their email, they know exactly where they stand. The people that really have to know can actually go to the report page and download the reports that they need. And this one, they can download Excel. If they log in actually through a web browser, they can actually pull up text reports or CSV files for just those that have money involved, or those for total registration. Or if I have, I've got a valid email here, you can email report. So it just makes it, I've given them some ways of being able to get the data out. It makes it fairly easy on that. The other is on that daily report, what it is using a script, the nightly report. Now, to gather that data, where do we lose it? It runs this script. It's a series of finds. It just puts it into a variable. It starts out what day, the date and the day of the week. And it goes through, give me all those registration, how many attendees, how many exhibitors, how many actually had membership transaction, money involved. So this is your totals numbers. Then here's the ones for that particular day. And then it sends an email. Then it goes around and it generates a new record in the stat file. And so it puts that information in there. This is where what we do is I use my global SMTP file so that it's all set up. Again, this goes back to having a core file. I don't have to go in and change this on all these different scripts that have email. This is all using based upon a table that's set in the global table that I have, the one with the single record. So it just pulls that information in and makes it real easy. And so if they say, want to change SMTP, again, it goes back to your core file. And for those of you, if you missed that, back to your admin again. The MIN. Here's my core file. And here's my SMTP setup. I put in who it's going to come from, how it's going to be done, if there's going to be a BCC in it. And I use SMTP to go to send our emails. Since we send so many, last month we did over 60,000 emails. Our mail server would go get spammed all the time if I didn't use an SMTP's source that they actually spend full time doing it. Very inexpensive. I think it's like $5 a month for 10,000 emails. So, it really is, well, if you do email blasts, strongly recommend it. Been using them for years. But again, as a core file, this makes it real easy to put it all in one place. So when I build a new file, I copy this over and do it. Again, here's my images. It's how it's all set up. This file actually is.
So Alan, are you using this same core file among different databases on the same server, or even across your multiple servers?
Oh, this would be on a specific server for this client, but this core file, I have the basic core, I'll put it on another server and I just change the data. So for example, give you a good idea here.
Sorry, this is a new concept for me, so it's pretty fascinating to not have to re-enter a lot of the same variables and stuff that seem to me with even our 60-some databases. It's we have to keep putting in a lot of the same things, and it just seems
you build a core and it uses so it's the same stuff over and over and over again. Then you just change it one place, it changes it throughout the whole system. For example, this is one client. He's got right now we've got 30 some of events going. Mm-hmm. All of them are using the same core. But now if I take that same file and go a different one, so all his is going to use the same, but each one of his clients could say on theirs, they want to have a different address. Make sense? But this way, I take the file, clone it, and literally these are all individual shows we're doing. We've got 30 some shows left at the end of the year. I can clone this file within 2 to 3 minutes and have it done. Wow. Just by going to this one file. Cancel, don't want to change. By changing this one setup file.
Hey, Alan, can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
So, I've got a similar situation where the client likes to use multiple files for different projects. But if you if you do a clone, it will drop all the data out. So if you're using things like zip codes, zip code database and other kinds of data that you want to keep in there, but you want to throw away all the customer data, so to speak.
Let me show you how I solved that one. I know exactly.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Show your favorite. So all these safe expos are the same type of show, right? So all I have to do is I go in here. Let me grab the default one. Safe expo. These are all live events going on right now. It's crazy. And if I go to again, to the setup file, in here, there's a license key. This is where I put it so that I know when this expires. So this client cannot take and clone this because he actually has access to this server. And so this, I have it controlled so that it has a license key that I created and it puts it in. But if I hit data clear, it runs a report and it goes through and it clears out. Don't want to hit that. It actually clears out all the, it won't clear out the global, the key, or the user files because those same, or the zip code files. So it actually clears out the contact, the stat, the transaction, user logs. Boom. So I hit one button when I register it, put in a new license, it clears out the data so it's now an empty. So I really don't use the clone function.
Oh, okay. All right.
I
You
copy
said clone. So
yeah, I copy it
and
I do
a copy of it. Okay.
Make a copy of it. Yeah. And now what it is because like this is his core file. So whenever, and I do it by version number because whenever he makes changes, I know which version. The latest version is what I'm going to grab because he'll have an event that started 6 months ago. So it may be on version 7.9 or something. So we've added more functionality to it. And then literally down here, it shows what I've added and when I added and what functions added. So as I said, keeping up to date on version files in a core can be a challenge. This is how I do it.
Nice. Okay.
So does that help answer that question for Jonathan?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I built that into it as part of the core of the file. Like it automatically clears out the tables I don't want to move over.
Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed. I even had to ask that question. So never mind.
Now, what has turned out to be is this client now orders 5 shows in advance. And he's doing so well because what happens is he'll be visiting a client and the client says, oh, it's a good day. He grabs it, runs over here, drops in their logo, puts the information in, and within 2 minutes, he has the client running because it's preloaded. And as soon as the customer signs on it, then I go back in and actually change the name to the right thing because it changes the license on it. Because the way my license works, it's based upon the name of the solution. So it can't be used again. And then it has expiration date on it, so I know when it ends. So this way he's selling them left and right, and I'm doing name changes. And the license key actually works out pretty simple. That's my key file. Core key set browse. And it actually, it can be actually run as a QR code. So if the customer's, if he's at a location says, oh, I need to do it and I don't have access to it, I'll email it to him. He just scans this and it does it. And that changes the name, changes the event key, changes the license on it because he's only allowed to use 100 at a time. I mean, and the whole bit puts a copyright on it, done. So this is one of the ways I'm able to clone it or duplicate it with the original data for very easily.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you notice, I've run through this one, the Army one, some other ones. They all sort of look the same. The first thing you do is you put in your PIN number type of stuff and go through that. But again, for this client, how many characters does he want in his PIN? Is it going to be PIN or by password? I mean, he can change all this type of stuff there. If it's a registration file, you can pay. Yes, all of a sudden now it can be used for online. So the same file I use over and over and over again. And this goes back to a core file built for flexibility. On this one, for that client to pull up his reports, that's the email or the default password that they want to use. The client can change these. They don't have to come to me. With as many solutions as we have running, I could not keep up with them if I had to maintain them, all the itty bitty stuff. So they only call me when it stops working. But all the rest of the stuff, he can change this. And the other what's sort of fun in this is he liked it when they quit the solution, it actually switches over. If I go back over to the home and I exit, goes here, but what happens is it actually goes to their website. So that's the clone that they see. So it makes it real easy for him to change where it goes back to, or if there's, register again, whatever the case is. I do as much as I can to throw it back on the client to help do their small maintenance on it. So it's a little bit different than probably a lot of developers who they want the client to always come to them. But there's only two of me and my partner on this, and we couldn't keep up with all of them if we had to literally make all these small changes ourselves. Questions?
Yeah, no, I always leave anything that the client can do. I try to set up a preference for them to set it.
Yeah.
And give them the options, and they can decide, how they want to do it. And I'll try to predict as many of those things as possible as I'm developing, so that just to cut down on, as what Tony White calls technical debt. If you create something that requires your time later, you've just taken out a debt.
Yep.
Because it's going to come back and demand of you later.
Yep. So I flew through that pretty quick. Case functions. Yeah. What would people like to see explored on? This is our 6th version of this, and so some of the basics, most of the basics I've tried to cover. Where do you want to explore it now, or do we close this chapter and start something new?
Well, I had a question as I was looking at that. Are you doing this all in WebDirect? Or is this all? Or is it a combination?
All the Safe Expo is WebDirect.
Okay.
And what we've done there is we've tied it into a client, and what they do is sometimes they'll do their own on-registration. And this is for the VAX verification at the end of a show. And we do a lot of medical shows and they're required 100% vaccination, we'll have to prove it. We'll have to upload the VAX card or whatever the case is. And we've actually tied it into their system. Go back over here. Safe Expo. And what this is this auto population. So what they do is they'll actually feed this information to us. So when they finish registration on their site, if that's the case, what it is, they just have a link at the bottom. They hit a button, it comes over here. It automatically populates the system. So they just keep going forward. They don't even realize they switched. The logo will be at the top and that type of stuff. And that way they're not having to enter the information again. And then they would actually go and actually upload their vaccination card or their photo ID. In this case, this particular client says, we also want to have your a picture of your ID as well as that. So we've tried to build a lot of flexibility into it. So in this case, there's double one, or it could be just a single one that they're uploading. They can upload it now. They can come back and do it. Then we actually will use this file actually on site as they check in. If someone forgets, we'll actually process it on site as well. So again, designed as a core file for flexibility and moving forward on that. But so in this case, this is all using WebDirect. Now the US Army one, because it's such huge volume, when you're talking about 40-some thousand people, as it gets closer to it, we'll do like 1,000 in a day. That's going to exceed the client limit. He only has a license for 100 users. So he would a site license. So he could actually have 100 people actually on the site at the time. He would exceed that all the time. So that's where we used FM Better Forms to actually build the online presence. And that's when I was talking with Rosemary. What we're doing there is they actually, let me go into, see if I've got. So this is our online form. We're using Better Forms for it. They put in their first name, their last name, and it actually then does a lookup. It's a three-way lookup. It takes the last name and the email address, and it actually goes back and it looks at recent. It'll actually look, the first thing it does is it looks in the registration file. If they're already registered, it's going to jump all the way to the end where it's got the online registration QR. Yeah. It'll jump right to this screen so that when they actually show up to the show to register, we just scan this and it prints out their badge. So the first thing it does is, have they already registered? If so, they can do it. Because what we're doing here is we'll process at peak times over 2,700 people an hour. So everything we have to do is, how fast can we do it? If they forgot their QR code or they can't find it, they can go, we'll have the stanchions, some signs, and they take their phone, they scan a QR code, it will take it, they put in their first name, last name thing. This will pop up, we can scan them, get them on through. So the first thing they do is look is, are they already registered? If they're already registered, if they're not registered, we already have their name and their email address. We're going to look in the membership records. We're going to go through their 250,000 plus membership file and look up, is that person registered? Or are they a member? If they're a member, we're automatically going to pull this data and populate the online screen. And then we also grab their when they what the membership record is, This is the contact record. Yeah, membership. It shows their expiration date and that type of stuff, information. So he doesn't expire until 2099, so he's a life member. If it expires next year, we'll actually go back and say, would you like to renew? So that's where the membership online. So this is all happening. So we're moving data back and forth all the time. If they're an exhibitor, they can only be an exhibitor from a company that's actually having a booth. So the drop-down list is from this list, and all these records are updated on a weekly basis. When the customer sends the file, we upload it, because they're not changing any data here. They're just pulling the file and doing a lookup. So again, it goes back to how fast can they get through this? And since I'm already registered, boom, done. It looked and said, I'm already a record. And so it actually went from their site to our on-site one, said, oh, I'm already registered. And here's the QR code they can scan. Here's a serial number, and they can go through.
And it pulled it back into FM Better Forms.
Right. It displays it on, so that way we can have literally 1,000 people touching at the same time, because it's only instantaneous. So I don't run into my limit of how many people are doing it at the same time.
Does Clara Studio look to you like they're trying to do FM Better Forms?
In a simplistic way, I would say yes. However, doing this back and forth and going back through, and I mean, we required verification, that type of stuff. I think it'll be a long time before they can have that much functionality into it. I guess I really haven't asked Charles, because he, this got extremely complicated, especially when you're dealing with committee making the decisions. The Army was absolutely terrible. There's not a day that goes by that they don't make some change on this. I love it when they say, oh, change the wording in this. I said, guys, you sent this to me. They don't realize what it takes to make all these changes in this, but yeah, we do it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's trying to make an easy entry point for just about anyone with a spreadsheet that wants to show data to either clients or vendors, or
yeah,
it looked like they're really trying to flatten it out.
And I really think there's a place for that studio on a simple registration forms type of stuff. And as soon as you have a little bit of being able to do some lookups, then I know for us, it would be invaluable to add to our arsenal. But when it gets complex like this, that's a different monster. I mean, when it's got to look up and actually do processing of money and that type of stuff, I think there'll be a long way before they ever get there.
Yeah, like the question would be, would it ever going to be able to run scripts on in the actual database side, the FileMaker database side?
Yeah,
versus
like,
side?
what are required fields? I mean, are you gonna be able to change things? Yeah. So like, it runs its thing and it drops. If they put in the email address wrong, my side cleans it back up. It gets rid of the spaces, that type of stuff. And so when it actually goes to the next screen, it'll show it being corrected.
Yeah, the web connectivity that I've done with the API and everything, pretty much, and it was something that Michael Lane and I had a discussion about that last year at Pause on Air, because he did a presentation about data API that we had him come do on here as well. But he did all of his scripting and validation and all of this processing on the website, on the web server end, because that's his where he lives. That's
right.
His thing. And I had posed the question, well, everything that I've done, I send it to FileMaker and have FileMaker run a script and do all of that kind of validation and processing and whatever needs to be done on the FileMaker end and ship back the result. And he said, yeah, whichever you're comfortable doing is the best. There's not necessarily one better than the other. It's just, if I'm a I'm a FileMaker developer, I'm going to do all that on FileMaker and feed it to the web. But if I'm a web developer, I'm going to do all that on the web page and feed the result to FileMaker. So
this took us about 2 months to actually build the whole thing and launch it. Beside the delay in them making committee decisions, because we looked at each step of which would be the fastest way of getting the information back and forth. Some of the validation they do on their side, some of it because you figure, you know, we want to have as much or as little back and forth as we can get a handle on, because it'll just be easier to handle. And so, but we went through it most of the time between pages, it's actually dropping down to us, but it actually does not create a record until the very end.
Yeah.
So what's nice about that is when you look at the registration file, we don't have empty records.
Yeah.
And so
So you're treating it transactionally.
Yes.
It's either all or nothing.
Yeah.
Good.
Let's see, find timestamp today. Yeah, we've done 250 registrations so far, just today. And those are all individual ones. These are not, as we get closer to it, some companies will actually send us Excel spreadsheets that we have to import in. We've given them a template that they've got to fill in all these fields, otherwise it won't go in. We'll load it in, but all of a sudden now it won't have a 1, so they can't use Express. It'll kick them out. So that's what I do for a living.
I got to get on to my next meeting. So
Okay.
thanks.
Yeah, it's looking like it's about time to wrap it up. So.
And so, yeah, if you want me to cover something, let me know, and we'll go from there.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to do some thinking about what we're going to do for next month. And as always, if anybody has got any ideas for presenters or anybody that has something that they'd like to show, just, you know, I think one of these months we'll probably do like a show and tell, but we'll probably want to put that out early enough so that everybody kind of is prepared for it, that, hey, you know, for all of our normal group that tends to come and attend, you know, just kind of put it out there. If you have something neat you want to show, have it ready for this month, and we'll just have like a mix of people kind of showing their nifty gadgets and stuff. But I don't know if that would be good for next month or.
Okay.
We'll have to do some thinking about it, but other than that, I guess we've come to the end of yet another meeting of the Kentuckiana Developers Group. So
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks for everybody for attending.
Thanks y'all for putting this on. It's great stuff.
Y'all have a great day and a great month.